Our first criteria is whether or not it provides necessary contextual information such as grade level, subject, materials, resources, and anticipated duration. So if we look at the website, the lesson plan, we do see the subject, which is math, and addition stories. The grade level, which is grade level 2, proposed anticipated duration, which is 1 hour, and then we also see the different materials. So they're going to need chart paper with a poem, flannel boards with manipulatives, whiteboards, and index cards. So as far as whether or not they provide the necessary information, I do rate that as a yes. So we're going to highlight that. So moving on to the next criteria, we're going to look at whether or not it shows evidence of connecting new knowledge to prior knowledge. Now, upon looking at this, I do not see anything where it connects previous knowledge to current knowledge to prior knowledge. He talks in this presentation section about teaching the students following reading a poem about how to use the flannel boards to organize the stories, and then just kind of straight goes into what he's teaching. So he doesn't pose any questions where he talks about where he would activate prior knowledge for them. Therefore, it would be mostly taking things out of context. The only part where it almost came close was when it talked about help students apply their math knowledge. Now, it doesn't talk about whether or not this is previous math knowledge that they learned in past classes or what. So I would probably rate showing evidence of connecting new knowledge as not actually being there because of that. So we're going to leave that one unhighlighted, and then we're going to move on to this next section where it talks about clearly stated learning objectives aligned to district mandated unit standards. So up on the top here, in this lesson plan, it talks about the standards. So it has the California Grade 1 Math Content Standard 2.5, which shows the meaning of addition. And then the objective that is based on that standard is that students will deepen their understanding of a concept of addition through oral storytelling with the use of manipulatives. They will then connect additional stories to math equations and write the equations. So it seems that this California Grade 1 is the mandated standard for this particular information. So I would say that this content objective right here would definitely connect to what the standard says, which is showing the meaning of addition. And they're using different types, so they're showing their concept of addition through learning how to do it through storytelling and manipulatives, as well as different equations that they will use. So I think for that particular criteria we're looking at, I would give them a point for that. So we'll highlight that one and move on to the next one, which is fully articulates and distinguishes lesson progressions toward the learning objective. So as far as this one goes, I'm looking at how it's set up. So his first step is that he motivates them through reading a poem. Okay, so we're then moving on to the next step, which is teaching them how to use the flannel boards, teaching them some vocab words, and basically modeling to the students what they are going to be doing throughout the rest of the lesson. So as far as at this point, he's going from an example and then moving on to modeling. So that's so far this learning is progressing. He's then giving the students a whiteboard and asking them to try doing the different equations, as well as using the flannel boards in groups. So he's then letting them practice. So we're seeing this, the teacher presents, which is the I do. We're seeing the we do, where he's also walking around, which is later on in this section, where he's walking around and talking to the students. So because he's walking around and talking to the students, and helping them, they're doing it kind of together as a group with each other, and also the teachers helping them. And then he's letting them kind of do it on their own in the next section, where he's giving them a circle and a whiteboard and having them pass it around with their partners, and then telling stories to each other using first, then, and together. However, we then go to the next and last section, which is the review section, where they are using an activity where he gives each student an index card, and the beginning has an equation, and the other half of the index card has the answer to the equation. This is where it gets a little fuzzy, because you have been talking the whole time about using stories and addition stories and basing your equation off of a story. However, in this part, there's nothing about stories involved at all. So it gets a little confusing because of that, and therefore I would probably not give this lesson plan that point, because it's not, once you get to the review stage, which is going back over everything you've learned, supposedly, you're getting rid of the aspect of having stories at all. So you're then removing the stories. Had he had index cards that had an addition story that they had to match to an equation, then I would give them the point. So we're going to skip that one and say that one's not true, and then move on to the use of research-based instructional strategies relevant to the objective. So if you look up above where he talks about using manipulatives and using the whiteboards and using partnered work, I feel like these are research-based strategies that he's using, where he's using group work, where he's sharing amongst each other, and then during a circle time, you're assessing the students. So this is kind of a version of the think, pair, share almost, where they think about it and then they share it to the class. And so because of this, which is then taking the objective and making that using the whiteboards to learn that, I think he is pretty well using some research-based strategies. And then he's also using at the end an activity that is engaging to the students, where you're using index cards and you're having them match things. So although this one at the bottom I wouldn't necessarily connect to the objective, I would say he's using research-based strategies that are relevant to the lesson, which the beginning of the lesson is pretty well connected to the objective, so I would give him a point for this. As far as scaffolding goes, we're looking at how the presenter sets it up. So he's originally doing the I do, where he is setting up, giving them questions, presenting, and doing it on his own. And then he gives them a little more freedom. So he's taking away a little bit of the supports that they maybe had at the beginning, where he's doing it all for them, and giving them the chance to try it out. And so he's walking around kind of helping them with maybe misconceptions they have, which is here where he talks about misconceptions about teams. And then we're moving on to the application, where the teacher is basically hands-off, where they're letting them share with their partners, working together, and then practice what they've learned in the previous one. So you're then taking away even more support and giving them the opportunity to do that on their own. Without this last review section in mind, it is definitely using scaffolding effectively. So I would highlight that as a point for that lesson. Showing purposeful thought and consideration of engaging diverse learners. Now, this lesson plan, which is a little disappointing, does not have any points that are about differentiation. It does use group activities. It does have this index card activity at the end, which would be pretty engaging to some students. However, if students are better at working on their own or using technology to do that, it doesn't use any of that in the lesson. So that being considered, when you're looking at diverse learners, you want to have different teaching instruction that will engage them in each step. And because the flannel board process in the practice, going to the whiteboard group study in the application, it's almost using the same concepts, just in a different form. So for that one, I would probably not give the person a point on, so showing purposeful thought and consideration. I don't think that this lesson shows that at all. So we're going to move on to the next one, which includes formative assessments to gauge student proficiency toward lesson objective. So this section does not have a whole lot. However, this teacher does have some formative assessments. So formative assessments are here where it says, during this time, circulate and assess student understanding and correct misconceptions among the teens. He's assessing whether or not they're understanding, which will then determine how they do the next step. It doesn't appear that they're using the formative assessments in the correct way, where it will drive their next instruction. If it doesn't say anything about if at the end they don't understand, going back and revisiting. However, they are going through and looking at what the students are doing, making sure that they understand what the concepts are, and then correcting them when they don't understand that. So for that point, I would definitely give them that there is at least a formative assessment in there. Therefore, I would give that to them. Now, based on what we've just done, I don't believe that we can give them a 5 on this, solely because they only have hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 8 points that are provided, and here below it says fully demonstrated at least 4 of the 5 of the 6 criteria listed under 4. So because we haven't even hit a 4, because we only listed 5 of the criteria up here, we're not going to really look at the 5th one because we have not fully demonstrated all criteria listed under 4. And I would probably give this lesson plan a 3 because of the fact that in the criteria it says you fully demonstrate at least 4 or 5 of the 6 criteria listed. Because they get a 5, I might give them a 3.5, but I think at this point, from what I've seen in their lesson and with the review section considered, I would probably give them a 3. So, and that is it. Thank you for listening, and bye.